United States Constitution. Amendments covered in BPOC Chapter 7, First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Third Amendment, no soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched, and the persons or things to be seized. Fifth Amendment, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Sixth Amendment, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Seventh Amendment, in suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. Eighth Amendment, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Ninth Amendment, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. 10th Amendment, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is one of the oldest protections against abuse of power. The phrase comes from Latin and means, "you shall have the body." In practice, it requires the government to bring a detained person before a court and explain, in law, why that person is being held. Habeas corpus is not a determination of guilt or innocence. It does not decide whether a person committed a crime. It answers a narrower, more dangerous question. Does the government have the legal authority to restrain this person's liberty? The existence of habeas corpus prevents secret imprisonment, indefinite detention, and confinement without lawful cause. It forces the state to justify its actions when it takes custody of a human being. Under the United States Constitution, habeas corpus is protected in Article 1, Section 9. The Constitution states that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless, in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. This means the federal Constitution recognizes habeas corpus as a fundamental right, but allows for its suspension only in extreme and extraordinary circumstances when the survival of the nation itself is at risk. Suspension is rare and historically significant, not routine or administrative. Texas chose a different path. The Texas Constitution addresses habeas corpus in Article 1, Section 12. It declares that the writ of habeas corpus is a writ of right and shall never be suspended. It further requires the legislature to make the remedy speedy and effective. Texas does not allow exceptions. There is no provision for rebellion, invasion, or emergency. The right is absolute under Texas law. This difference is critical for peace officers. When Texas provides greater protection to an individual than the federal Constitution, Texas law controls. Officers must operate under the stricter rule. For an officer, habeas corpus is a constant reminder that detention must always be lawful, justified, and reviewable by a court. No person may be held simply because it is convenient, investigatory, or unresolved. Every detention must stand up to judicial scrutiny. If the government cannot justify the detention, the law demands release. Not mercy, not discretion, release. Habeas corpus is the boundary line between lawful authority and unlawful restraint. It exists to restrain the state, not to protect the guilty. A nation that respects habeas corpus admits a hard truth. Power must always answer to law, especially when it places someone in chains. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Bill of Rights. All sections required for BPOC, Chapter 7, Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, Freedom and Sovereignty of the State. Texas is a free and independent state, subject only to the Constitution of the United States, and the maintenance of our free institutions and the perpetuity of the Union depend upon the preservation of the right of local self-government, unimpaired to all the states. Academy explanation. Texas governs itself but must follow the U.S. Constitution. When state and federal law conflict, federal law controls. Local self-government is essential to keeping the Union together. Texas calls itself free, but it does not stand alone. It walks its own road, yet remains bound to a greater one. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 2, Inherent Political Power. All political power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. They have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. Academy explanation. All government power comes from the people. Texans may change or replace their government if needed, so long as it remains Republican in form. Power does not live in buildings or titles. It rises from the people and returns to them when trust is broken. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 3, Equal Rights. All free men, when they form a social compact, have equal rights, and no man or set of men is entitled to exclusive separate public emoluments or privileges, but in consideration of public services. Academy explanation. No one is entitled to special privileges unless earned through public service. The law applies equally. Texas rejects crowns hidden in offices. Privilege must be earned, or it does not exist. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 3, A. Equality under the law. Equality under the law shall not be denied or abridged because of sex, race, color, creed, or national origin. Academy explanation. Texas law cannot discriminate based on these protected characteristics. The law does not see race or creed, only the person standing before it. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 4, No religious test. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust in this state. Academy explanation. Texas cannot require religious belief or affiliation to hold public office. Duty is not measured by faith at an altar. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 6, Freedom of Worship. All men have a natural and indefeasible right to worship Almighty God according to the dictates of their own consciences. Academy explanation. Government cannot interfere with religious belief or force religious participation. Faith is not issued by the state. Each person walks that road alone. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. Freedom of speech and press. Every person shall be at liberty to speak, write, or publish his opinions on any subject, being responsible for the abuse of that privilege. Academy explanation. Speech is protected, but abuse of speech can still bring legal responsibility. Words are free to travel, but they still leave wounds. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 9, Searches and Seizures. The people shall be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and possessions from all unreasonable seizures or searches. Academy explanation. Searches require probable cause and properly issued warrants. Curiosity does not open doors, only sworn cause does. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 10. Rights of accused in criminal prosecutions. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall have a speedy public trial by an impartial jury. Academy explanation. This guarantees trial rights, counsel, confrontation of witnesses, and protection against self-incrimination. When the state accuses, it must speak in the light. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 11. Bail. All prisoners shall be bailable by sufficient sureties, unless for capital offenses. Academy explanation. Bail is generally required except in very serious cases. Freedom is the rule. Confinement is the exception. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 11A. Denial of bail for repeat felonies. Any person accused of a felony who has been twice previously convicted may be denied bail. Academy explanation. Repeat felony offenders may be denied bail. Trust broken twice is no longer trust. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 11B. Violation of conditions of release. A person who violates a condition of release may be denied bail pending trial. Academy explanation. Intentional violation of release conditions can result in denial of bail. Freedom carries terms, break them knowingly, and it is withdrawn. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 11C. Family violence and bail. The legislature may authorize a court to deny bail to a person accused of a violent offense involving family violence. Academy explanation. Bail may be denied to protect victims of family violence. When violence follows someone home, protection comes first. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 12, Habeas Corpus. The writ of habeas corpus is a writ of right and shall never be suspended. Academy explanation. Texas never allows suspension of habeas corpus. Detention must always be justified. When Texas holds a body, it must answer, always. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 13, Excessive bail. Open courts. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel or unusual punishment inflicted. Academy explanation. Punishment is limited, and courts must remain open for legal remedies. Justice is not a locked door. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 14, Double jeopardy. No person for the same offense shall be twice put in jeopardy of life or liberty. Academy explanation. A person cannot be tried twice for the same offense. The state gets one chance. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 15, Trial by jury. The right of trial by jury shall remain inviolate. Academy explanation. The jury trial cannot be weakened or removed. 12 citizens remind the state who it serves. Texas Constitution Article 1, Section 16, Bills of Attainder, ex post facto laws. No bill of attainder ex post facto law, retroactive law, shall be made. Academy explanation. Texas cannot punish without trial or criminalize past conduct. The law must warn before it strikes. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 17, Taking property. No person's property shall be taken without adequate compensation. Academy explanation. Government must compensate for property taken for public use. Force does not make ownership just. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 19, due course of law. No citizen of this state shall be deprived of life, liberty, property, except by the due course of the law of the land. Academy explanation. Texas due process protection. No shortcuts, no shadows. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 20, outlawry. No citizen shall be outlawed, nor shall any person be transported out of the state. Academy explanation. Texas forbids exile as punishment. Justice is faced, not fled. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 21, corruption of blood. No conviction shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture of estate. Academy explanation. Punishment does not extend to family or inheritance. Guilt ends with the guilty. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 23, right to keep and bear arms. Every citizen shall have the right to keep and bear arms, but the legislature shall have power to regulate. Academy explanation. The right exists, but lawful regulation is allowed. Defense is allowed. Chaos is not. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 25, quartering soldiers. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in the house of any citizen without the consent of the owner. Academy explanation. Homes are protected from military occupation. A home is not a barracks. Texas Constitution, Article 1. Section 27, Assembly and Petition. The citizens shall have the right, in a peaceable manner, to assemble together, and apply to those invested with the powers of government for redress of grievances. Academy explanation. Peaceful assembly and petitioning the government are protected. When people speak together, power must listen. The two constitutions. Where Texas walks a different road than the United States. Habeas corpus. The United States Constitution protects habeas corpus, but allows it to be suspended during rebellion or invasion when public safety requires it. This creates a narrow emergency exception at the federal level. Texas rejects that exception entirely. Under the Texas Constitution, habeas corpus can never be suspended. There are no circumstances where detention is allowed without judicial accountability. This means that in Texas, every detention must always be capable of review by a court. The old nation left itself a door it could close in fear. Texas sealed that door shut. If the state takes a body, it must always answer for it. Freedom of religion. The First Amendment prevents the federal government from establishing a religion or interfering with religious exercise. Texas goes further by explicitly prohibiting religious tests for public office, declaring that no human authority may interfere with matters of conscience, and forbidding legal preference for any religion or form of worship. Texas is more specific and more restrictive on government action in this area. The federal flag forbids command over belief. Texas forbids even the weight of government leaning toward one altar. Freedom of speech, press, assembly, and petition. The First Amendment protects speech, press, peaceful assembly, and petitioning the government. Texas mirrors these protections but adds an important condition. Individuals remain responsible for abusing the privilege of free speech. Texas also explicitly protects the right to assemble for the common good and to petition the government for redress of grievances. The old nation guards the right to speak. Texas reminds you that words still carry weight. Searches and seizures. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures and requires probable cause for warrants. Texas follows this rule but often applies it more strictly through state constitutional interpretation and the Code of Criminal Procedure. Texas emphasizes warrant specificity and sworn probable cause and may suppress evidence even when federal standards are met. The federal road draws the boundary. Texas posts sharper warnings and expects them to be obeyed. Rights of the accused. The Fifth and Sixth Amendments protect due process, the right to counsel, trial by jury, confrontation of witnesses, and protection against self-incrimination. Texas incorporates these rights but uses the term due course of the law of the land and provides detailed state-level protections. Texas courts may interpret due course of law as providing greater protection than federal due process. The old charter sketches the outline. Texas fills in the lines so nothing is left to chance. Bail and punishment. The Eighth Amendment prohibits excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. Texas adds detailed rules on when bail may be denied, including repeat felony offenders, violations of release conditions, and serious family violence offenses. Texas also guarantees open courts and access to remedies for injuries. The old nation says punishment must not be cruel. Texas says when mercy ends and protection must begin. Double jeopardy. The Fifth Amendment bars double jeopardy. Texas repeats this protection clearly in its own constitution, ensuring the rule applies fully at the state level without reliance on federal incorporation. The state gets one chance. Justice does not rehearse. Property rights. The Fifth Amendment allows the taking of private property for public use with just compensation. Texas expands this protection by requiring compensation not only when property is taken, but also when it is damaged or destroyed for public use. The federal flag allows taking with payment. Texas demands payment even when the harm is indirect. Right to keep and bear arms. The Second Amendment protects the right to bear arms. Texas affirms this right, but explicitly allows the legislature to regulate how arms are worn or carried in order to prevent crime, making the balance between defense and public safety clear in state law. Texas trusts its people with arms, but it keeps a steady hand on the reins. Rights not enumerated. The Ninth Amendment states that rights not listed in the Constitution are retained by the people. Texas echoes this principle by declaring that all political power is inherent in the people and that government exists for their benefit, framing unenumerated rights as flowing from popular sovereignty. The old nation whispers that other rights exist. Texas says them aloud: state power and sovereignty. The 10th Amendment reserves powers not delegated to the federal government to the states or the people. Texas reinforces this by declaring itself free and sovereign while still acknowledging the supremacy of the U.S. Constitution when required. Two flags fly. Texas bows to the higher one, but never forgets its own. The rule that controls everything. When both constitutions apply, the officer must follow the one that gives the individual more protection. In Texas, that is often the Texas Constitution. The federal road sets the floor, Texas raises the ceiling, and the officer who forgets which one stands higher will fall. The road of order. The structure and role of the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system is not one body. It is a chain. Each part touches the next, and none can stand alone. Its purpose is simple: to enforce the law, judge fairly, and carry out lawful punishment. If one part fails, the whole system weakens. Law enforcement, the front of the road. Law enforcement is the entry point of the criminal justice system. Its role is to enforce the law, prevent crime, investigate offenses, protect life and property. Officers do not decide guilt or punishment. They gather facts and bring cases forward. City law enforcement. City police enforce municipal ordinances and state laws within city limits. They handle the highest volume of calls, including traffic enforcement, misdemeanors, city ordinance violations, initial felony investigations. They walk the streets where the law first meets the people. County law enforcement. County law enforcement is typically handled by the sheriff's office. Their role includes enforcing state law in unincorporated areas, operating county jails, serving warrants and court papers, providing courthouse security. The county stands between the city and the wider land, holding both order and custody. State law enforcement. State agencies enforce statewide laws and support local agencies. Their responsibilities often include highway patrol, major investigations, specialized crimes, and assisting local agencies. They watch the long roads between towns where jurisdiction fades and duty continues. Federal law enforcement. Federal law enforcement enforces federal laws, not state or local law. They handle crimes involving interstate activity, federal property, national interests, violations of federal statutes. They answer to a higher flag, and they step in only when the crime crosses state lines or federal boundaries. Courts, the place where the law speaks. Courts do not enforce the law. They interpret it, apply it, and judge disputes. Their role is to ensure due process, determine guilt or innocence, impose lawful sentences, protect constitutional rights. Municipal courts. Municipal courts handle city ordinance violations, fine only misdemeanors, traffic offenses within the city. They deal in small matters, but they still speak with the voice of the law. County courts. County courts handle the misdemeanors, some felony proceedings, appeals from municipal courts. They are the bridge between minor offense and serious crime. State courts. State courts handle felony trials, serious criminal cases, appeals within the state system. They carry the weight of the state itself, judging crimes that scar communities. Federal courts. Federal courts handle federal crimes, constitutional issues, cases involving federal law or multiple states. They exist to ensure the law of the nation speaks with one voice. Correctional system, where judgment is carried out. The correctional system does not decide guilt. It carries out the sentence imposed by the court. Its purpose is to punish lawfully, deter future crime, rehabilitate when possible, protect the public. Municipal fines. Municipal fines are penalties for city ordinance violations, traffic offenses, minor misdemeanors. They remind citizens that even small laws matter. County jail. County jails house pre-trial detainees, misdemeanor offenders, short-term felony sentences. The jail holds those waiting for judgment and those serving short debts to the law. State prison. State prisons house felony offenders, long-term sentences. They are reserved for crimes that demand separation from society. Probation. Probation allows an offender to remain in the community, follow court-ordered conditions, be supervised instead of incarcerated. It is freedom with rules and trust with consequences. Parole. Parole allows an offender to be released early from prison, remain under supervision, follow strict conditions. It is earned release, not forgiveness. The system as a whole. Each part depends on the others. Law enforcement brings cases forward. Courts decide lawfully. Corrections carry out judgment. No part may overstep its role. When one piece tries to rule the others, justice bends and then breaks. The code that carries the Constitution. The role of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure in the criminal justice system. The Constitution sets the limits of power. The Texas Code of Criminal Procedure shows how to move within those limits without breaking them. It exists to turn constitutional rights into daily practice. It tells officers, courts, and correctional systems how to act lawfully from first contact to final release. If the Constitution is the road, the Code of Criminal Procedure is the map that keeps you from walking off it. Law enforcement, how officers act without becoming the law themselves. The Texas Code of Criminal Procedure governs what peace officers may do, when they may do it, and how they must do it. It does not give officers power. It controls power. The purpose of the code is to prevent crime, protect the innocent, and ensure that justice is carried out according to law rather than impulse. The law was written to restrain the hand that enforces it, so that authority does not become abuse. Searches and seizures. The Code of Criminal Procedure enforces the constitutional protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. Officers must act reasonably, with lawful authority, and with proper justification. Searches and seizures that violate the Constitution or Texas law place cases at risk and can result in evidence being excluded. The Constitution draws the line. The Code tells you where your boots must stop. Unlawfully obtained evidence. The Code requires courts to reject evidence obtained in violation of the Constitution or Texas law. This rule applies directly to peace officers. A case does not fail in the courtroom by accident. It fails because someone crossed a line earlier. A good arrest cannot save a bad search. The courts, how rights are preserved after arrest. Once a person is arrested, the role of law enforcement begins to narrow. The courts take over. The Code of Criminal Procedure ensures that every accused person is treated according to due process and receives the protections guaranteed by law. The strength of justice is measured not by how it treats the guilty, but by how carefully it treats the accused. Rights of the accused. The Code protects the rights of those accused of crimes, including the right to fair treatment, the right to be informed of accusations, and the right to defend oneself. Peace officers must respect these rights from the moment custody begins. The badge does not silence rights, it carries them forward. Right to legal representation. The Code guarantees that an accused person has the right to be represented by legal counsel. If a person cannot afford an attorney, the court must appoint one. Officers may not interfere with this process. The law does not require a person to stand alone against the state. Trial by jury and public proceedings. The Code implements the right to trial by jury and ensures that trials are conducted publicly. Justice must be visible to be trusted. Secret proceedings are not justice. When judgment is passed, it must be passed in the light. Corrections. How lawful punishment is carried out. The correctional phase begins only after the courts have acted. The Code of Criminal Procedure governs detention, confinement, release, and supervision so that punishment remains lawful at every stage. Punishment is not allowed to become cruelty. Justice does not end at conviction. It continues through custody. Bail and pretrial release. The Code explains when bail is required and when it may be denied under Texas law. Liberty before conviction is the rule. Confinement before trial is the exception. Freedom is the starting point, not the reward. Prohibition against cruel treatment. The Code forbids cruel or unusual treatment at every stage of custody, including detention, transport, and confinement. This protection applies long before sentencing. The law forbids cruelty not only at punishment, but at every moment a person is held. Habeas corpus. The Code enforces the right of a detained person to challenge unlawful confinement. If the government cannot justify why it is holding someone, the law demands release. When the state takes a body, it must always be ready to answer. Limits on punishment. The Code reinforces constitutional limits by prohibiting banishment and ensuring that punishment does not extend to a person's family or property by inheritance. Punishment ends with the offender. Texas punishes the crime, not the bloodline. The system as a whole. Law enforcement begins the process. Courts judge it. Corrections carry it out. The Texas Code of Criminal Procedure binds these parts together and keeps each in its proper place. When officers act like judges, justice breaks. When courts act like enforcers, justice bends. When punishment becomes vengeance, justice dies. When each part stays in its role, the system holds. When one steps beyond it, the road fractures.